Buy tea for everyone. Madison, the arrogant daughter of a powerful CEO, throws money at Joseph during a high-profile company event, humiliating him in front of everyone. Joseph quietly picks up the money, but what happens next is far from ordinary. As the party continues, the shocking truth about Joseph's identity is revealed, turning the tables on Madison and shaking the entire room. This twist will leave you questioning who truly holds the power in this tale of respect and redemption.
Buy tea for everyone.
It happened at the anniversary party of a famous food company. I was told this by Madison, the daughter of the company's CEO. She threw $2 at me. Silently, I picked up the $2 and handed them to Madison. I felt incredibly sad. Why did I have to be treated with such malice? The employees attending the party, who saw this, turned pale and began to murmur.
What's all the fuss about?
At that moment, Madison's father, Mr. Hill, came over to me, and he said something shocking. My name is Joseph Allen, 42 years old. I usually work at a small seafood processing factory on a remote island. But I returned to the city with my family for the first time in a long time. My two sons said they preferred the island to the city, and my wife already missed the open skies of the island, saying the city felt cramped. We returned to the city because we were invited to the anniversary party of the famous food company tomorrow. My mentor, Mark Young, an executive at the company, had asked me to attend with my family, so we returned after many years. That day, Mark wanted to see me before the party, so I visited the headquarters of the food company alone. The company was housed in a high-rise building, one of the most prominent in the city. As I admired the impressive building from below, a car roared into the entrance at high speed and stopped. From the bright red sports car, a woman with long hair, wearing a flashy patterned suit and black sunglasses, got out. Two employees hurried out from the company's entrance to greet the woman.
You're late. You should come and open the door before the car arrives.
We're sorry. The two employees hung their heads and listened quietly to the woman's complaints.
Who do you think I am? There are plenty of replacements for you.
Watching this unfold, I felt sorry for the employees and couldn't stay silent. I impulsively spoke up to the woman. Excuse me. Surprised by my sudden question, all three of them turned to look at me. The woman glared at me sharply and asked, "What?" I was momentarily intimidated, but managed to pull myself together and ask, "I would like to meet with Mark Young, please." "Mark, do you have an appointment?" "Yes, my name is Joseph Allen. I have an appointment at 1 p.m. today." Before I could finish, the woman, irritated, said,
Can't you ask the receptionist about that? By the way, is this Mark even part of our company?
The employees exchanged glances and timidly told the woman, "Mark Young is Mr. Hill's right-hand man. You should know him well, Madison." Hearing this, the woman's pride seemed hurt. Her face turned red and her voice grew louder.
I don't know him. Anyway, let's go inside. My dad insisted I come, so I returned to America just for this.
Shouting this, she led the employees into the building. She was called Madison, but could she be the CEO's daughter? After they left, I was about to head to the reception when one of the employees came back to me. "I apologize for earlier. I've contacted Mr. Young, so please take the elevator to the 37th floor. Thank you very much." The employee quickly ran back inside. "Mark, it's been a while." "Yes, it has. Thank you for visiting me, Mr. Allen." I was delighted to reunite with Mark after several years. "Since your wedding, right? How is your family?" "Yes, my eldest son started elementary school this year, and my younger son is 4. My wife is busy researching recipes using local island products with her mom friends. I'm looking forward to meeting them tomorrow." Mark was my mentor, who kindly guided me when I was inexperienced in the company where I trained for a while. I once caused a business deal to fail and brought loss to the company, but Mark never blamed me. He apologized with me to the client and the company. On the way back from the client's place, I cried and apologized to Mark. The words he said to me then have stayed with me ever since. People who don't know failure can't grow. Those words have continued to support me to this day. By the way, Mark, you can just call me Joseph. Treat me like you used to. Well, but please, I'm still the same person. Hearing my words, Mark initially hesitated, but in the end he agreed. We chatted about life on the island and the children, and the conversation seemed endless. But not wanting to interrupt his work, I decided to leave. Well, I should be going now. Already? That's a shame. We'll have plenty of time to catch up at the party tomorrow. I'd like to introduce my family too. Yes, I'm looking forward to it. I said goodbye to Mark, and as I opened the door to leave, I almost collided with a woman rushing towards me in high heels. She exclaimed, stopping abruptly. It was Madison, Mr. Hill's daughter, who had been yelling in the entrance earlier.
Watch it.
Sorry, are you okay? I hurriedly asked, and she seemed to recognize me.
You're that guy from earlier. What are you doing here? Why are you in our office without permission?
Well, that's... Hearing the commotion, Mark quickly came out and began explaining my presence to Madison. Madison, this is an acquaintance of mine. We had an appointment today.
But that's strange. Aren't you supposed to be working? Why would you let someone unrelated into the office? I'll tell Dad about this.
Hearing the words, unrelated person, Mark's expression changed, and he began to speak slowly, as if to calm her. Madison, this person is not unrelated to our company. He is. As Mark was about to reveal my identity, I stopped him and said, Mark, it's fine. I'm leaving now. But I apologized to the woman, and not wanting to cause more of a scene during work hours, I quickly headed towards the elevator to leave the area. From behind, I could hear the woman shouting, "Don't ever come back here." Without looking back, I silently got on the elevator. Even though I was glad to see Mark after such a long time, Madison ruined the happy reunion, and I left feeling frustrated. The next day, I was heading to the anniversary party with my family. Since the party was in the evening, we planned to stop by the factory my father ran and have lunch together. The kids were excited to see their grandparents after a long time. My father runs a small factory in the downtown area. I helped out there after dropping out of high school until I was 35. My father encouraged me to go to college, but back then, there were only 3 employees, including him. Considering the unstable nature of the factory's business, I decided to work instead of continuing my education. Grandpa, we're here. Hearing the kids' voices, my father appeared from the back of the factory. Hey, glad you came. Dad, it's been a while. How have you been? Your mom is excitedly preparing lunch since she heard you all were coming.
Well, I'll go help her.
Saying that, my wife and kids headed towards the main house. After having lunch with my family and getting ready to leave for the party, the factory phone rang. It was one of the clients, and apparently there had been a mistake in their order, resulting in a shortage of deliveries to another company. They were asking if we could somehow manage the situation. However, it was Sunday, and the factory was closed. None of the employees were around. We have to do something. They seem to be in trouble. But Dad, you can't handle this alone. It's okay. Don't worry. You all should head to the venue. Isn't it starting at 4? Being late would be rude. It was clearly more work than my father could handle alone in the given time. So I decided to stay and help him. I told my wife to take the kids to the venue first, and then I would follow later. My father wasn't entirely convinced, but seeing me put on the work clothes hanging on the factory chair, he resigned and silently began working. We finished the products a little after 4 p.m. My dad said, "Joseph, thanks. I'll deliver these now." With that, he hurried to the client's place. Watching his back as he left, I felt a renewed sense of respect for my father, for the way he treated everyone with such care. The venue was a renowned hotel in the city. In my haste, I forgot to change out of my oil-stained work clothes and ran to the party's reception dressed like that. The receptionist initially looked at me suspiciously in my dirty work clothes, but after confirming my name, She looked back at me and apologized profusely. It's okay. I'm sorry for being late. Is everyone already inside?
Yes. The party started about 30 minutes ago. Please, go on in.
I was guided by the receptionist and entered the room, where I saw Madison, the woman in a short red dress covered in sequins, the same red as the sports car I had seen earlier. Behind her were the same two male employees. As soon as she saw me, Madison shouted,
Who is this dirty man, looking like a cockroach?
Madison, please lower your voice a bit. Everyone is staring at us. The many employees in the room were all looking at us, surprised by Madison's loud voice. Some employees near me started whispering, Hey, isn't that? Could it be that Madison doesn't know who he is? No way, she's Mr. Hill's daughter. She must know. And everyone murmured nervously,
Hey, now that I look closely, you're the rude guy who almost bumped into me at the company the other day. Did you come all the way here in such dirty clothes? What do you want?
Well, I was invited by Mark today.
Mark again? Honestly, what is he thinking? Inviting such a filthy scum like you. What a worthless guy.
I was shocked to be called a filthy scum, but what hurt more was hearing Mark being insulted. Please don't speak ill of Mark. It's my fault for coming here dressed like this. Hearing this, Madison's face briefly showed frustration before she grinned maliciously and said,
How dare you talk back, you filthy scum. But I'm kind, so I'll forgive you. I'll even hire you as my servant right now. You should be honored.
She laughed and continued.
Listen, this is a command from your boss.
Madison opened her bag and took something out.
Buy tea for everyone here.
She threw $2 at me in front of the large crowd of employees. At that moment, the employees around me turned pale and started murmuring. What?
Why are you all so surprised? Isn't this a great idea? I'm offering to buy tea for everyone here.
Madison crossed her arms and laughed. I crouched down, picked up the $2, and silently held it out to Madison.
What? Are you saying it's not enough? Or do you just not want to go buy it?
As she said this, she snatched the $2 from my hand. I felt incredibly sad. Why did I have to endure such treatment? Had I done something so wrong to Madison to deserve this? The party, which had been lively and festive, was now in chaos because of Madison's ridiculous actions. In the midst of this, I noticed someone slowly walking towards us. I recognized that person immediately. I had known him since I was a child. He stopped in front of me and said, Long time no see, Joseph. Carter. The previously noisy room fell silent with his arrival. Madison was still the only one making a fuss, shouting, Who is this person now? Who are you? I heard you would be here today, so I thought I'd drop by. I'm glad to see you. Carter pulled me into a gentle hug. I was genuinely happy. I had always wanted to see Carter again. When I was in elementary school, one of my father's factory clients went bankrupt due to a bounced check at the bank. At that time, Carter Clark, who was in his 20s and sending money back home, worked for that bankrupt company. Carter was in a tough spot when the company suddenly went under. Seeing this, my father offered Carter a live-in job at our factory. Even though times were tough and our factory was struggling, my father decided to help Carter. Carter worked diligently every day. I still remember my father often praising Carter, saying he was quick to learn and had a good sense for the work. I admired Carter like a real older brother, and Carter also treated me kindly, saying I reminded him of his younger brother back home. Years passed, and Carter's skills were recognized, leading to a job offer from a big company. At first, Carter flatly refused the offer, but my father strongly encouraged him to take the opportunity. He believed Carter would thrive in making things that would benefit people, and thought he should gain more experience than he could at our factory. On the morning Carter left, I was so sad and cried, begging him not to go. Seeing this, Carter hugged me and promised he would come back to see me once he succeeded, asking me to wait for him. Believing in his promise, I worked hard at my father's factory after dropping out of high school. I thought that if I worked hard enough, I could become skilled like Carter and be closer to him. Years passed, and my father's factory finally got back on track, and by that time, I was about to turn 35. One day, a man came to the factory. As soon as my father saw his face, he shouted, "Carter, is that you, Carter? It's been a while, sir." Hearing my father's voice, I rushed out from the back and saw Carter smiling gently at me. "It's been a long time, Joseph. I've missed you, Carter." He had the same warm, nostalgic smile as before. When my father invited Carter to have dinner with us that evening, Carter was delighted. He reminisced about my mother's home-cooked meals, and for the first time in years, we shared a meal at the same table. After dinner, Carter asked me, "Joseph, aren't you married yet?" "No, I have a girlfriend, but I still feel like I'm not fully ready." "Then, do you want to become ready?" "Huh? What do you mean?" Carter sat formally in front of us and said, "I want you to take over my company, Joseph." "What?" "I want you to become the chairman of all 28 of my group companies." Chairman of 28 companies. As I listened, I learned that Carter had become the chairman of a group of 28 companies. He wanted me to take over all of them. "But I can't handle such a huge responsibility. I want you to take it because it's you." No matter how many times I said it was impossible, Carter kept insisting. At first, my parents were shocked, but soon they agreed with Carter's proposal and even started persuading me together. Overwhelmed by their enthusiasm, I eventually found myself saying, "All right, I'll give it a try." After that, I began studying management intensively, and I traveled to each of the group's companies nationwide, working incognito to learn from the ground up. I thought that not revealing my position as chairman would allow me to see the true nature of the company. During this time, I got married to my current wife and moved our home base to a remote island. That island had a small seafood processing factory, one of the group's companies, and I was captivated by the island while I was training there. I discovered that the factory valued personal connections deeply, much like my father's factory, which might be why I felt a strong connection to it. Recently, I had just announced publicly through the media that I was the current chairman. Madison watched our reunion with a bored expression, yawning. Gradually, the employees started to recognize who we were and began whispering among themselves. "Isn't that the former and current chairman?" Madison overheard this, but seemed not to understand what was happening, and asked her accompanying employees, "What do you mean by the current and former chairman?" "Well, I didn't know until recently, but it seems those gentlemen are the former and current chairman of our company."
What? What are you talking about? No one ever told me about it. Why didn't you tell me from the start?
Realizing I was the current chairman, Madison panicked and started blaming the employees for not informing her sooner. "But we've been following you around abroad for years, and we just returned recently. How are we supposed to know who the current chairman is?" One of the employees shouted this, almost in tears, and ran out of the venue. Seeing this, the other employee left silently as well, having reached their limit. I felt sympathy for them. After the employees left, Madison was left standing alone, surrounded by a crowd of employees keeping their distance.
They ran away so quickly. This is lame. Maybe I should leave too.
At that moment, the company's CEO and Madison's father, Mr. Hill, entered through the door.
Hey, Dad, weren't you resting in the room?
Apparently, after giving his opening speech, Mr. Hill had taken a room to rest, due to his busy schedule and poor health, as some employees had mentioned. It was my first time seeing Mr. Hill, and indeed, he didn't look well. Having been informed about the commotion by his secretary, Mr. Hill hurried back to the venue. He walked past the astonished Madison, came up to me, and suddenly apologized to me. "Mr. Allen, I am deeply sorry for my daughter's behavior." Seeing her father apologizing to me, Madison was utterly embarrassed and shouted.
Dad, what are you doing in front of everyone? Stop it.
But Mr. Hill glared at Madison, shouting back, "Apologize with me. Do you even know who this person is?" Even as her father said this, Madison showed no signs of concern.
Who? I don't really know. But isn't he the chairman of our company? It doesn't directly concern me, does it?
Hearing Madison's words, Mr. Hill started trembling with anger. "How stupid can you be? I am ashamed of you. I can't believe I've raised such a foolish daughter." The employees in the venue watched the dramatic exchange between Mr. Hill and his daughter with intense interest. Turning back to me, Mr. Hill continued to apologize to me. "Mr. Allen, I am deeply sorry. The blame for my daughter's actions lies entirely with me as her parent. I am prepared to resign from my position as CEO immediately to take responsibility. Mr. Hill's resignation announcement sent shockwaves through the venue. Please, Mr. Allen, there's no need for this. Even though they were family, I felt it was wrong for a parent to apologize in such a way for the actions of an adult daughter. So I tried to stop Mr. Hill from continuing his apology. But Mr. Hill remained steadfast. No, I have turned a blind eye to my daughter's wrongdoings for too long. They say the worse the child, the more you love them. But by giving her money and letting her do as she pleased, I have raised her to be an inconsiderate person who mocks others. The responsibility for this lies entirely with me. Mr. Hill seemed resolute and somewhat liberated as he spoke. From now on, I will resign as CEO and then. He looked at Madison and declared, I will disown my daughter.
What? Disown?
Mr. Hill's announcement shocked not only Madison, but also me and all the employees. You're over 30 and still don't understand the world at all. You've lived selfishly, not learning how to interact with people. From now on, you will live on your own and learn about society from scratch.
No way. I refuse. No matter what you say, I won't leave home. Just try to make me leave.
Madison remained arrogant and defiant, even towards her father. At that moment, the entrance door burst open with a loud bang. Wait a moment. Everyone turned to look. It was Madison's attendant employees, who had left earlier. We also have something to confess about Madison's wrongdoings, about the crime she attempted to commit.
What do you think you're saying, coming back now?
With the employees' statements, the previously silent venue once again buzzed with murmurs. Madison tried to take confidential company information without permission. She attempted to sell it to a rival company. What? Mr. Hill was extremely shocked by the revelations from Madison's attendants, his face turning even paler. Of course, such a thing is impossible due to security measures. But when she realized it was impossible, she then ordered us to find a way to withdraw company funds. The employees' shocking confessions caused the gathered workers' dissatisfaction with Madison to explode. What does she think of this company? We've worked hard to support this company, but just because she's Mr. Hill's daughter, she's done whatever she wanted here. Don't ever show your face here again. As angry voices from the employees filled the room, Mr. Hill looked shocked. Seeing Mr. Hill like this filled me with sympathy for him. To be betrayed by a daughter he raised with care. Despite everything, Madison sat there fidgeting and showing no signs of remorse, occasionally clicking her tongue in irritation as she listened to the employees' accusations. Eventually, Mr. Hill, still looking down, stood up weakly and said, "Can someone call security here, please?" When the security guards, summoned by the employees, arrived, Mr. Hill pointed directly at Madison and said, "Take this woman out of here.
What?
There's an intruder here. Escort her out immediately.
Dad, what's wrong with you? Have you lost your mind?
The one who's crazy here is you. You are no longer my daughter. We are nothing but strangers now. Get out." Madison, being dragged out of the venue by the security guards holding her by the arms, kept shouting even after she was taken outside.
This can't be happening. Dad, hey, let go of me. Do you know who I am?
Later, I heard from others that after Madison was escorted out by the security guards, she still tried to force her way back in, so the police had to be called. Even with the police, she screamed, "I am the CEO's daughter. Don't you dare touch me, and let me back in immediately." After Madison was removed from the venue, Mr. Hill apologized to everyone and once again announced his resignation. He then staggered to leave, but I stopped him. I urged him to reconsider resigning and instead to make an effort for the company's sake. If he truly felt sorry for his employees, I asked him to think about what he could do to benefit them from now on. Mr. Hill declined, saying he wasn't worthy of such a role, but Mark then spoke up. "Mr. Hill, you have saved me countless times. I have worked by your side for many years, and I have always seen you thinking of the company and the employees and dedicating yourself to them. I believe all the employees here feel the same way." All the employees nodded in agreement at Mark's words. With tears in his eyes, Mr. Hill still hesitated. and continued to refuse to withdraw his resignation. Mr. Hill, I may still be inexperienced, but please allow me to say this. There's something my mentor told me long ago, words that have supported me ever since. The words were, people who don't know failure can't grow. I believe that no matter how old we are, we can learn from our mistakes and start over. So, I hope you can once again dedicate yourself to the employees and work hard. Carter, who had been listening, approached Mr. Hill and said, Mr. Hill, you have worked hard to grow this company from scratch. You might have made mistakes in raising your child, but remember what Joseph just said, that people who don't know failure can't grow. Please, take that to heart and keep going from tomorrow. I'm so sorry. Really, everyone. I'm sorry. After saying this, Mr. Hill broke down in tears, unable to speak. I put my arm around his shoulder and continued to offer words of encouragement. The employees, witnessing this, applauded continuously. Since then, Madison was indeed disowned and thrown out of the house. Additionally, her former attendants sued her for mental and physical suffering, demanding a large amount of compensation. In an effort to pay the compensation and support herself, she tried to find work, but was rejected everywhere. Eventually, she ended up working on a fishing boat belonging to an acquaintance of Carter, cleaning the ship and assisting the fishermen. Initially, Madison often tried to escape, so now the fishermen constantly keep an eye on her. A recent acquaintance who saw Madison reported that she no longer had her flashy appearance, her face was bare, her hair messy, and she looked like a sunburnt, emaciated old woman. Yet, there is a faint hope that if she continues to work hard, she might become a much better person inside than she was before. My family wasn't present at the party venue after all. Since my younger son had fallen asleep, the three of them were resting in the waiting room. I was relieved to hear that. I didn't want my children to witness that scene. When we left the hotel, it was already getting dark outside. As we were walking together, Carter was waiting for us. Joseph, what a day, huh? Yeah, Carter. Thanks for everything. Are you going back to the remote island? Yeah, we like living there. When I looked at the three of them, they nodded at me with the same smile. I'll be causing trouble for my family again, but I'll continue studying management while working on the island, and I'll visit the companies when needed. That's the kind of life I want to continue. It's selfish of me, and it might inconvenience the company and make my family lonely when I'm away. Dad, because you're working hard, we'll work hard too. I'll do my best too.
There are times when we feel lonely, but we love seeing you give your all.
Hey, you two are so lovey-dovey. I was so moved by my family's words that I looked up to keep from crying. I'm glad I entrusted everything to you. I'm not really suited for management. I'm more of a creator at heart. When I was wondering what to do with all the companies, I suddenly thought of you, Joseph. I see. I always wondered why you chose me. You grew up watching your father's back, didn't you? That's why you're so compassionate and kind, just like your father. Carter's words deeply resonated with me. I was glad he thought of me that way. Because you're kind to people, I knew I could trust you with everything. You're strong because you never abandon those who are weak. Yeah, Dad is kind and the best father ever.
That's right. He's the best person ever.
Oh, come on. That's embarrassing. I was once again grateful for the people around me. I knew I could remain unchanged because of my parents, family, Carter, and Mark. Dad, let's go back to the island now. Yes, let's go back to the place where I belong now.